Good evening and a Happy New Year to everybody. Can we remain standing while we hear prayers from Imam Akram from Hayes Muslim Centre? Imam sir.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to join you this evening to share a prayer. I will recite some verses from the Holy Quran in Arabic and translate in English. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله يأمركم أن تؤدوا الأمانات إلى أهلها وإذا حكمتم بين الناس أن تحكموا بالعدل إن الله نعم ما يعظكم به إن الله كان سميعا بصيرا يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلووا أو تعرضوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. I seek Allah's protection from Shaitan the rejected. With the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most kind. Surely Allah commands you to fulfill trust obligations towards those entitled to them, and that when you judge between people, judge with fairness. Surely good is what Allah exhorts you with. Surely Allah is all-hearing, all-seeing. O those who believe, be upholders of justice, witnesses for Allah, even though against the interest of yourselves or the parents and the relatives. One may be rich or poor. Allah is better caretaker of both. So do not follow desires, lest you not be just. And if you twist or avoid the evidence, then Allah is all aware of what you do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands to do justice and be good, and to give relatives the due, and forbids from shameless acts, evil deeds, and transgression. He exhorts you so that you may be reminded. In the end, I pray to Almighty Allah for everyone's good health, success, and happiness. I pray to the Almighty Allah for all the members of our community who have suffered during these difficult times due to COVID. I pray to the Almighty Allah for the success and goodness in all the affairs that are being discussed and decided in today's and future meetings. Amen. Thank you very much. Peace and blessing to all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Very seated. Rapidly move on to the agenda. Any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have apologies from councillors Ahmad Walana, Arnold, Bira, Burrows, Deville, Dott, Graham, Hurangi, Markham, Nelson, Oswell, Sir Ray Puddifoot, Singh and Stead.
Any declarations of interest? Sorry, Councillor Allen.
We're in the wrong meeting.
Have we got the right agenda? This is the special meeting one.
No, not the special.
Okay.
Apologies.
That'd be a no then. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to request that that we suspend the Council Procedure Rule 14.6.
Councillor Chamdal.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I formally second and reserve my right.
Is that agreed? Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Mr. Mayor, I am privileged and also personally delighted to propose to the Council that Sir Ray Puddifoot, our former Council leader, and Jean Palmer, our former Deputy Chief Executive, be awarded the freedom of the Borough. Sir Ray has been an exceptional visionary leader of the Council over 20 years and leaves a legacy of achievement unlikely to ever be surpassed. But that achievement has depended upon the loyalty, skill and dedication of Jean and her ability to align Council delivery with the direction given by Sir Ray. If ever there is a truth that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, it is in the partnership between Sir Ray and Jean. We are required by statute to agree the award of honorary freedom at a special council meeting, but the process and procedure beyond that decision is open for local determination. In recognition of the unique achievements and contribution of Sir Ray and Jean to the Borough and its residents, I am proposing that, exceptionally, the ceremony to confer the honorary freedom, the signing of the register, the presentation of the scrolls, be undertaken at a civic dinner at the Battle of Britain bunker on Friday, the 8th of April, when other dignitaries will be invited, along with serving members, to honour Sir Ray and Jean. I shall have the opportunity to speak more fully in recognition of Sir Ray and Jean at the civic dinner, and you will be pleased that I will not be rehearsing that speech now. Sir Ray will also be speaking about Jean. So I will close by formally moving the motion that under the provisions of the Local Government Act 1972, Sir Raymond John Puddifoot, MBE, a resident of this borough, be admitted to the role of Honorary Freeman of the borough, the highest distinction in the power of the Council to bestow, in recognition of his 20 years of outstanding leadership of the Council of the London Borough of Hillingdon and his exemplary service to its residents. And also that Jean Palmer, OBE, a resident of Pinner, also be admitted to the role of Honorary Freeman of the Borough in recognition of her long-standing and eminent service to the London Borough of Hillingdon and the contribution to the lives of its residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Curling.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's with great pleasure that I second this motion. Councillor Sir Ray Puddifoot, MBE, is an honourable man who has dedicated over 20 years to public service and is the longest serving leader in Hillingdon. Recognised for his public service with an MBE and a knighthood. He has always been respectful and honourable. I think one of the first dealings I had with him was as a Charville councillor along with Mary O'Connor. One of the main issues we had in that ward was the old Grange Centre in Pine Place. So Ray gave the residents his assurance that although a restricted covenant was being removed, he would personally guarantee that a new community centre was built to replace the old Grange Centre. So Ray was true to his word and a new community centre was built and is still there to this day. Over the years, we have not always seen eye to eye, but there's always been a mutual respect between us, particularly in the last few years. The relationship between the leader of the council and the leader of the opposition is not always an easy one. But when COVID struck, Sir Ray was in constant contact with me, keeping me informed at all times and seeking my opinion on various matters. We both put politics on hold and just got on with what needed to be done to ensure that our residents were safe and well served by their council. I thank Sir Ray for his statesmanship through the pandemic and indeed over the last couple of decades. Jean Palmer OBE has certainly been one of the most dedicated and determined officers who has always had the residents of the borough at her very heart. Her dedication to ensure that the residents got the best possible service from the council is second to none. I really don't know how Jean maintained the strength and stamina to work the long hours that she did. Indeed, on many occasions, I've received an email from her at 5:45 in the morning, only to find her still working at the Civic Centre when I was leaving a committee at 10 p.m. the same day. I also noted with amazement that she was copied into every single member's inquiry, and she always was very quick to respond and ready to take any action necessary in order to get an issue resolved. The COVID pandemic threw everyone into major incident mode, and Jean excelled at controlling the operational day-to-day services and setting up new services, redeploying staff to where they could best meet the needs of our residents. Mr. Mayor, it is an honour and privilege to stand here and second the motion to bestow the freedom of the borough on both Jean Palmer OBE and Councillor Sir Ray Puddifoot MBE. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure to speak in support of the motion before us this evening. Ray, I know, entered the politics of Hillingdon for the first time in the fight against the proposed Warner Village development at Hillingdon House Farm, and Jean Palmer first came to our attention when she joined Hillingdon as the head of our planning department, and both individuals were people who, through those early experience, developed both a ferocious sense of the discipline that was required to serve the residents of Hillingdon and great attention to detail, which they demonstrated in all the different ways that they approached their respective roles. And that partnership was probably the most important driving force behind the putting residents first ethos, which has made Hillingdon stand out amongst other local authorities. And when we consider many of the important issues that have faced our residents in the last few decades, issues like the proposed expansion of Heathrow, which didn't merely require political opposition, it required detailed attention to legal issues, to how to finance a campaign, to bring in allies across London and the wider world. It was the work that was done by Ray and Jean as a politician and as an officer that made that campaign so effective on behalf of our residents. When it came to ensuring that we had the school places that we needed for all our children, that the property issues, the finance issues, the detail around site by site, the needs of the children that varied across our borough, it was the combination of someone with huge attention to financial detail and someone with great knowledge of planning and how to deliver that made that effective. The fact that Hillingdon to this day has the largest number of green flags of any local authority in the known universe is down very much to the dedication and focus of these individuals. And the fact that we as a council were able to sustain a council tax freeze for so long that's left a lot of money in our residents' pockets that in other councils would have been taken and perhaps wasted was down to that focus and attention to detail. So Hillingdon has an enormous amount to thank these two individuals for, and it seems to me that the honours that they were bestowed were one step towards that, but this demonstrates a heartfelt thank you on behalf of the residents, which is well merited and deserved today.
Well done. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I grew up with the dynamic duo of Batman and Robin, but much closer to home, we have had our own Ray and Jean. It's really worth remembering what Hillingdon was like when Ray became leader in 2000, almost bankrupt, that's Hillingdon, not Ray, and vacillating between Labour and Conservative control. Ray once explained to me that unlike a standard business, we actually knew what our income would be, that our only job was how we spent the money wisely. And although people always say that accountants know the cost of everything and the value of nothing, Ray is, in my opinion, the exact opposite of this stereotypical accountant. Admittedly, I am told there's nothing he loves reading on a cold Sunday afternoon than a set of accounts, but it's exactly that outstanding skill combined with the practice of the patience of Job that has allowed him to spend thousands of hours doing bottom-up accounting, spending money where it was most needed, rather than allowing year-on-year inflation increased budgeting. This is where Jean came in by re-educating officers away from feeling absolutely obliged to spend their budgets before the year end or lose the money from next year's budget. Ray and Jean brought order out of chaos and shaped and redirected the council's finances and created the much respected concept of strong financial management. Perhaps unusually for an accountant, Ray had the humanity to put our residents absolutely at the heart of everything we do. Ray didn't choose a smooth passage, and his concept of putting Hillingdon at the heart of this administration brought him into conflict with successive Conservative governments on the third runway and HS2. Whilst technically a Tory flagship authority, he thankfully had skin thick enough not to care about what was thought of him at CCHQ. But put nicely, he was always considered to be a maverick, with Hillingdon being dismissed as slightly odd. His knighthood was for his outstanding services to the people of Hillingdon and not for his services to the Conservative Party. His partnership with Jean started before she became Deputy Chief Executive in 2011, and seeing it from inside the Cabinet was amazing. Ray created policies and Jean was his enforcer within the officer corps. Jean and Ray worked brilliantly together, both being firm, decisive and fair with the councillors, officers and residents. Jean always sent notes to officers who excelled, which allowed her to admonish them when they occasionally got it wrong. Together they moulded the officer corps into an efficient, cost-effective, driven team. Jean would say, "No, councillor, I don't think the leader would approve of that," and she was always absolutely right. They were absolutely on the same wavelength, both with a strong moral compass that was firm, kind and above all fair, with the added ability to predict how a policy would work and look across the authority. Mr Mayor, I fully support this motion and believe that in the 43-year history of the granting of freedom to the borough, there was
Thank
never...
you, Councillor Lewis. Thank you. Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am delighted to have this opportunity to speak in favour of granting the freedom of the borough to two people who have contributed so much to the life and soul of this borough of Hillingdon. One of them has been very much in the public eye, whilst the other perhaps has been more active behind the scenes. Over the years that I have served, we have granted freedom to a select number of people who have given great service to the borough, but few, if any, in my opinion, have earned it more than the people nominated tonight. So where to start? Well, perhaps ladies first. I remember meeting Jean when she was merely the head of planning, at the beginning of her meteoric rise through the ranks. Over the intervening years, I have been fortunate to have worked with her as my lead officer on many projects and events, and her effectiveness in office was always top-notch. However, I do hold her personally responsible, at least in part, for the expansion of my waistline, due to her early recognition of my sweet tooth, resulting in the provision of biscuits, Danish pastries or croissants at most of our meetings. Nonetheless, Jean's work ethic was legendary, always arriving at the Civic Centre in the morning before anyone else, and often leaving well after everyone else had gone home. As Deputy Chief Executive, she held a portfolio far wider than anyone else in the building and had a grasp on everything going on around her, while still having time to write personal letters of thanks to members of staff, recognising extra contributions when they occurred. Jean's excellence has already been noticed elsewhere with the well-deserved honour of an OBE. Jean, granting you freedom of this borough is our personal letter of thanks to you. So as I said, ladies first, knights second. Much has been already said about Sir Ray's contribution to this borough, but at a personal level, working alongside him throughout his period in office has been a great privilege to me, and as a result, there is no doubt in my mind that he is most deserving of this honour, the highest we can bestow on one of our citizens. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with a title, so luckily he's got one of those already, only a scroll, which I understand he will receive in due course. His work for our borough has been outstanding. There is no doubt that we would not be in the good place we are now without the significant drive and vision he brought to his role as our leader, coupled with his accountant's brain, to ensure we stayed on the financial straight and narrow. As some of us may know better than others, you can make any promise you like to residents, but without the financial probity to back it up, those promises are completely worthless. Sir Ray, above anything else, has ensured we kept our word to our residents, and for us politicians, keeping our promises and delivering for our residents is vitally important.
Councillor Bianca. Thank you.
I move.
Do we have any other speakers? Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a pleasure to rise and speak in support of this motion. Who was it who said politics is the art of the possible? I am one of only a handful of members across the chamber who were elected before Councillor Sir Ray Puddifoot. In nearly 30 years, my view, and I think surely our collective view, of exactly what is possible in local government has changed beyond all recognition. Time was when budget setting was synonymous with service cuts, difficult meetings, frayed tempers, blood on the carpet almost sometimes, and that was just among colleagues. It's a measure of the achievements of Sir Ray that this all sounds so very dated, indeed inconceivable, I suspect, to some of our newer members. Taking a fresh look at how we construct budgets, building up through zero-based budgeting, looking at what we do and how services can be delivered and transformed, with a relentless focus on service delivery and residents first, is part of the enduring legacy Councillor Sir Ray has built. Councillor Puddifoot in many ways has rewritten the orthodoxy of local government and provided a model for our successors to follow. And it was also my privilege to work with Jean. Quite apart from the fact that we share a birthday, her innate strength and formidable organisational prowess meant she went from being head of planning, as we've heard, to a point where it was probably easy to say what she hadn't got overall responsibility for, leading the charge on business improvement delivery in the service of our residents. I believe it used to be said among officers, if you want to know how the administration thinks and will react on a particular matter, ask Jean. Dare I say that she might have known it better than one or two members of the administration on occasions. Mr. Mayor, both Sir Ray and Jean exemplify the very best in local government at member and officer level, engendering very much a can-do approach in the service of our residents across a multitude of services over many years, a monumental achievement indeed, and a world away from my experiences as a new councillor in the early 90s. It was my good fortune and privilege to work with them both over so many years in Cabinet, and something of an education too. They are both eminently worthy recipients, and I support the motion.
Any other speakers? No? Councillor Edwards. Okay, we're going to go to the vote now. We've got to have a show of hands, please, for the motion. Motion's carried. Well, I want to congratulate the Freeman myself, and we look forward to the civic dinner announced by the leader on Friday the 8th. We're going to have a small 5-minute break while we switch over YouTube channels and everything else. So 5 minutes is 5 minutes, please. Thank you.